The FIA has delivered a statement that has sent shockwaves through the Formula One paddock, with multiple drivers now expressing serious concerns about their future in the sport. Nicholas Tombazis, the FIA's single-seater director, has responded to mounting criticism from drivers regarding the upcoming 2026 regulations, but his defense has only intensified the controversy surrounding what could be the most dramatic rule change in modern phone history. The governing body's position centers on a fundamental disagreement with drivers about what matters most in Formula One. Tombazis stated, "First of all, I do get a bit surprised by how much emphasis is put on the actual lap times. We've had various phases of the sport when cars have been slower or faster. And I think once you are used to it, it's okay." This dismissive approach to lap time concerns has failed to reassure drivers who are already expressing doubts about the direction of their sport. The numbers behind the 2026 regulations reveal the scale of change facing Formula One. According to FIA simulations, the new cars will be between 1 and 2.5 seconds slower than current challengers. Tombazis explained, "In our simulations, the new cars will be between 1 and 2 seconds slower at the start of the regulations, and clearly there will be evolution that will make them gain speed." The regulations introduce a 50-50 power split between the internal combustion engine and battery power, fundamentally altering how these machines operate. Max Verstappen, the four-time world champion, represents the most significant threat to Formula One's stability. The Dutch driver has previously hinted at early retirement, and the 2026 regulations could be the catalyst that pushes him toward that decision. Verstappen's concerns about entertainment value in the sport directly conflict with the FIA's technical direction. If Formula One's biggest current star decides the regulations are not worth his participation, the sport faces losing a massive portion of its global popularity and commercial appeal. Charles Leclerc has provided perhaps the most revealing insight into how dramatically these regulations will impact drivers. The Ferrari driver stated, "It's very, very different from what we are used to. I think drivers there will be a lot of things that we'll have to forget from whatever we've learned in our careers, to start again from a blank page." Leclerc's concerns go deeper than simple adaptation, touching on fundamental muscle memory developed over decades of racing. The Monaco native elaborated on the personal challenge these changes represent. "That's a little bit strange because having done this sport since I was 4 years old, having to erase something from my muscle memory will be a little bit strange. But it's part of the game, and in itself it's a challenge to try and reinvent a little bit the rules and find some performance in other things." This statement reveals that drivers will need to essentially relearn their craft for the new era. Lance Stroll has emerged as one of the most vocal critics of the regulatory direction, arguing that the sport has become over-artificialized. The Canadian driver believes the rules have moved too far toward technology-driven competition rather than pure racing skill. Stroll advocates for cars with significantly more downforce, allowing teams to find their own solutions rather than having every aspect controlled from the pit wall. His teammate Fernando Alonso has partially supported these concerns while bringing his own veteran perspective to the debate. Alonso, who has been competing in Formula One since 2003, offers a unique viewpoint on how these changes will affect different aspects of racing. The two-time world champion stated, "For us drivers for sure, I think these kinds of tracks, Spa, Suzuka, high speed, less downforce, are not going to be as exciting as what they are now." His prediction that drivers will be sliding around more than what we are now paints a picture of significantly altered racing dynamics. However, not all drivers share the same level of concern about the upcoming changes. Lewis Hamilton, who debuted in 2007, has expressed enthusiasm for the innovation these regulations represent. Hamilton said, "For me, the thing I love about Formula One is that there are these changes that come along the way. There's so much innovation and development, and every time they make these changes, the learning curve is so steep for everyone within the team." The seven-time world champion represents a more optimistic faction within the driver community. The technical reality of 2026 presents a fascinating paradox that explains much of the driver concern. While lap times will be significantly slower due to reduced downforce and the hybrid power unit configuration, top speeds could reach unprecedented levels. Toto Wolff has suggested that cars could approach 400 km per hour when full power is deployed. Felipe Drugovich, Aston Martin's reserve driver, described the sensation as feeling like you're sitting on a rocket, when the car accelerates out of corners. The implications for Formula One extend far beyond individual driver concerns. Teams that manufacture their own power units, including Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston Martin, are expected to have advantages in the new regulatory era. Mercedes has been developing their 2026 engine program for 5 years, positioning themselves for potential dominance reminiscent of their success when turbo-hybrid regulations were introduced in 2014. The FIA's approach to preventing another period of single-team dominance reflects lessons learned from that era. Tombazis acknowledged, "In fairness, we don't have data from all the teams. We don't know the exact levels of downforce from all the teams. Potentially, some teams that don't get it right initially may be a bit slower than our simulations, but we don't expect lap times to be a talking point." This statement reveals both uncertainty about competitive balance and confidence that performance differences will eventually normalize. Driver adaptation timelines present another critical factor in determining the success of these regulations. The learning curve will be steep for all competitors, but some may adapt more quickly than others. Alonso admitted after simulator testing, "I only did 1 day in the simulator and it was difficult to really take any conclusions from that. So, I will wait a little bit longer, or maybe even test a real car, because sometimes in the simulator you have a feeling and then in the real car you have a different one." The potential for driver retirements creates a domino effect that could reshape Formula One's landscape. If Verstappen follows through on retirement hints, other drivers might reconsider their commitment to a sport they no longer find engaging. This scenario would create opportunities for younger drivers, but could damage Formula One's commercial appeal and fan engagement levels significantly. Historical precedent suggests that major regulatory changes typically require 2 to 3 years for teams and drivers to fully optimize their approaches. The 2014 turbo hybrid introduction led to Mercedes' dominance that lasted several seasons, while the 2017 aerodynamic changes and 2022 ground effect regulations each created temporary competitive imbalances before the field converged. The 2026 regulations represent Formula One's most significant gamble in decades, balancing environmental sustainability goals against traditional racing entertainment values. The sport's ability to maintain driver satisfaction while pursuing these broader objectives will determine whether these changes enhance or diminish Formula One's appeal to both participants and spectators worldwide. The FIA's confidence in their regulatory framework faces its ultimate test when cars hit the track for the first time. Tombazis continues to defend the changes, arguing that concerns about slower lap times are misplaced, but the disconnect between governing body optimism and driver anxiety suggests potential turbulence ahead. The 50-50 power split between internal combustion engines and electric power represents uncharted territory that could either revolutionize racing or create fundamental problems that require emergency rule modifications. Fan reaction will ultimately determine the success of these sweeping changes. While 400 km/h top speeds might compensate for slower cornering performance, the overall spectacle must maintain Formula One's reputation as the pinnacle of motorsport. The sport's commercial partners and broadcast audiences expect thrilling competition, not compromise for environmental considerations alone. Early 2026 testing sessions will provide the first real indication of whether the FIA has successfully balanced innovation with entertainment. If multiple drivers struggle with the new format or express continued dissatisfaction, Formula One may face its most significant crisis since the introduction of controversial regulations that fundamentally altered the sport's character and competitive dynamics.